funny, there's hotter spots in the room. I just walked into like a warm spot. Did someone pee over here? Tell me your name. Ao? Nice. Nice to meet you. I'm Devarshi. I'm working a mic up here. There we go. So we're filming today, so your voice will end up on YouTube. These talks end up on YouTube. I'll start in a minute here. So welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Appreciate it. And Pono, thank you so much for this beautiful gift. And you missed it, but the best part about this gift was the presentation and the beautiful love in which it was given. So thank you. This is our third talk on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, going through the sutras. And I'm using a book, Mukunda Styles. I've been watching these two because Leela occasionally likes to just, she's like, yeah, I'll take you for just a few bits, and then that's it. Come on, Arch. Come on. No, you step it. All right. So I'm all set for today's presentation. Ran out the house, had everything, obviously all this stuff, and left the book at home. So I have somebody. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you've got it. That helps. I just went. Dasi doesn't have this book, so how great! This is the book that I'm teaching from. So that really. Thank you, Melanie. You saved the day. Perfect. So this is our third talk on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. We're going through little by little, taking it apart. Anybody not know anything about Patanjali's Sutras, just to get a little brief introduction about what it is? Great. So briefly, this is 196 aphorisms or lines or sutras or shlokas. A sutra means a thread. A shloka is a verse. So it's 196 verses. Okay, it's very tight and pithy. There's not a wasted sound or syllable in this. I always like to think and imagine that someone comes to you and says, I'd like you to put down the workings and the nature of consciousness in 200 lines, and nail it, okay? That's what Patanjali did. Like literally how our consciousness works. If you're interested in what the mechanics are and the technology is of yoga, union, how to attain a state of union, it's in these 196 lines, which is like, wow, how did he do that? It continues to hold my attention for so far 5 decades. And I really was on the search when I got very young. I was really on the search for the truth. Like capital T, not like your truth, not a truth, but it's like, is there a truth that is true here, whether I believe it to be true or not, which is different, because we all know what you believe is true for you and what you believe is true for you, but is there a truth that's really true? That was what I was looking for. Yoga is Sanatana Dharma, the path of yoga, literally means the religionless religion. It's actually a science. It's the science of the truth, searching for the truth. And as far as I'm concerned, I think Patanjali nailed it, and I keep, of course, challenging it in every way. But as a result of this book, everything that I see and everything that I read, it seems to fall into, it's like, oh, that's yoga. Oh, that's yoga. Oh, that's yoga. Oh, that's yoga. Because once I got this foundation, I see how everything fits into it. Any questions at all about that? It's about 2,000 years old, so it's a young book in terms of, it's a very new book in yoga philosophy. The Vedas and Upanishads and Puranas are all, 5,000 years older than that. So this is a new book.
So
Yes?
You mentioned about the slokas and about the sutras, and you said the verse is the slokas? Or the
Yeah, a verse means a verse, a shloka means a line, a sutra means a thread. So you could call it a shloka, a verse, a sutra, a line. They all mean the same thing. So when it says Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it's often called the unadorned thread of yoga, meaning it all weaves together. So that's why a sutra is more what you would call a poem. And Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, scripture, yogic scripture, one of the things about Sanskrit is that it's a very melodic tonation, vibration language. So it's actually meant to be sung and felt. And Sanskrit is actually based in the binary code and uses the mouth and the sounds like a cathedral. And actually last time we went over the Bij mantras, which are the heart of all sound and the heart of what makes up the sound of Om. And these sutras, like the first sutra, Ata Yoga Nushasanam, now inquire into union, now let union begin, now experience union in this present moment, is actually a mantra where if we were learning the sutras together, we would go, Ata Yoga Nushasanam. And you could do the whole sutras that way. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha Tada Drashtu Swarupe Vashtanam. So could go on and on. So it's very cool. And India had a long, strong oral tradition. And as you know, if you're memorizing something, like we can all remember songs that we learned in grade school or commercial jingles, and yet we can barely remember what, happened, yesterday. So a song is really a vital way to remember something. So singing the scriptures, and also the fact that they often rhymed, so it had this check and balance in it, so you could repeat it. And obviously 196 lines. I mean, how many lines is the Hanuman Chalisa?
40 verses, 80 lines.
40 verses, 80 lines. Okay, so I was thinking that the Hanuman Chalisa is much longer than this, but not. Okay, so, and most of us have done our best to try and memorize the Hanuman Chalisa, and it's quite a task, but it's doable. I've been reading this for so long. I mean, the lines are so familiar to me that I've got a lot of it memorized. Any other questions about the sutras and why the sutras? To me, it's the science that really makes a difference. What turned me on in my searching was when I read this. Patanjali does such a good job of making this as devoid of any projection. It's very dry and clear and tight. And it's not filled, like, it's very scientific. And as a result, you can't really throw a lot of stuff at it, Whereas if it felt, quote, and I'm saying this term, if it felt religious, like it had some sort of bias or bent to it or culture in it, it would be less appealing to me. It really comes at it as a scientific document. So where last we left off with the sound of Om, and then we learned the Bij mantras. And we're going to continue from there. We're in the first chapter, if anybody else has a book. I'm going to find... Okay, so we left off at chapter 1. There are 4 chapters, padas. Pada means a foot, and often they like 4 chapters to feel stable, like 4 feet. So it says here, the sound denoting the self, this high self that we've been talking about, is the eternal vibration of Om, the manifestation, which manifests the grace of divine presence. So it's giving us actually one of our first practices. And it says, chant Om as much as possible. Absorb yourself in the vibration of Om as much as possible. So Om is it's not just this vibration, but as we went over last time, when you chant Om, literally like when it's done on water, Om, the sound of it, literally forms in water a yin-yang symbol that is constantly moving, okay, which is really odd. So it's not just like, oh, we're so cool, we're so new age, let's chant Om. It's like that vibration, when you chant it, somehow Om literally creates this sacred geometry that is found in crop circles in every culture that represents the out of nothing comes something and the duality of everything and everything constantly turning into the opposite. And here it is, all in the chanting of Om. And then you have to realize that when you're chanting that, that's actually happening in your body and your cells, and it's bringing you back into a state of balance. So he lists it here as the first practice that he gives us. By constantly repeating that sacred sound with great respect and love, and by reflecting upon its meaning, one will attain spiritual wealth. From that practice arises the attainment of inward directed consciousness, and also, and I love this, the obstacles to success disappear. Okay? So, the obstacles to success of what? Pretty much whatever we want, but also to the success of union, finding that state of yoga, of union, of peace. Then he says there's obstacles to self-knowledge, and then he gives all these obstacles. You can get into each of these, but it's like dullness, disease, doubt, negligence, laziness, excessive craving, delusion, lack of concentration. So, great. There's plenty of those ways, and he names them all. Accompanying these distractions are suffering, frustration, restlessness, and a disturbed inhalation and exhalation, a disturbed breath. He says, in order to prevent these obstacles from arising, you should habituate yourself to meditation upon a single principle. Okay? So it's like, obviously, we don't want those things to arise, so we need to train the mind. And training the mind is one of the biggest aspects of yoga. Most people are not in charge of their mind. Their mind is doing them. They're attracted over here, they're distracted over there. Oh, it's just the way I am. I hate this, I love that, and the mind is in the driver's seat. So the trick here is to begin to say, wow, I've got a mind, okay? And this is one of the biggest differences between the East and the West. In the West, people take their minds very seriously, and they cultivate their minds. Oh, I went to Harvard. I've put myself together in such a specific way that this is who I am. As opposed to in the West, where it's just the mind, the monkey mind. Okay? It's not to be taken personally. It's a bunch of labels and concepts and beliefs that are over there. And the trick is to really free yourself up from the mind, which is very different than being your mind. Okay? So the first step here to going beyond the mind is to habituate yourself to a meditation upon a single principle. Now, I love this one sentence I think gets overlooked a lot, and I want to break it down because I think there's so much power in here. So this is the first chapter, verse 33. By cultivating attitudes of, and I'm going to go down each of these slowly, by cultivating the attitude of friendliness towards happiness. Friendliness towards happiness. That might not seem like that big of a deal, okay? To cultivate friendliness towards happiness. But the truth is that most people are really jealous of happiness, or they doubt others' happiness, or they go, why not me? When they see someone happy, rather than feeling like, wow, that is so great. Pono just went on a fabulous trip and I saw it on Facebook and I'm so happy for him. Lots of people are like, can't believe he gets to travel and I don't. Interesting, how we've got like these attitudes. So I taught, and I bring this up a lot, prior to moving here to Hawaii 3 years ago, I taught in a drug and alcohol rehab center, yoga and mindfulness, for 6 years. And I was there every day. And the residents were there long term, minimum of 3 months. Many stayed for a year or longer. And of course, it was recovery from drugs and alcohol. And I make gross generalizations, but many of the people came in there were dealing with some of the basest beginning level on the map of beginning to try to find happiness, okay? And they doubted my happiness completely. I had to earn their respect, which I was grateful for. It was some of my most favorite teaching ever because they didn't have models in their life of people who are happy. So happiness was an act. They hadn't experienced happiness in their own self. Many of them came from horribly abusive situations, repeatedly from their parents who were drug addicts themselves, and violence in lots of ways. So happiness was not something they could really be friendly towards. Okay? But to open up towards this goal of even wanting happiness for yourself, it's like, wow, I want to be happy for your happiness. I want to feel friendly towards your happiness. So it's interesting. All right? Because people skip over that. Cultivate an attitude of friendliness towards happiness. You think, oh, I've got that, right? And compassion towards suffering. Again, compassion towards suffering. Believe it or not, lots of people aren't so compassionate towards other people's suffering. It's like, oh, yeah, thank God it's not me, or, oh, so sorry that's happening for you, or whatever, so compassion towards suffering. Delight towards virtue, okay? Delight towards virtue. Okay, so when people have virtues, really to delight in individuals' virtues, like that's a beautiful virtue, and I really delight in that, rather than jealousy, or rather than why not me, or some other form.
Can you give an example of virtue?
Virtue would be, this person has a real, you have such a beauty, you have emanate such a beauty, okay? So rather, I delight in your beauty, as opposed to, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, why not me? Oh, you must be a bitch. I mean, you must be, because all beautiful people are bitches, right? That's the kind of belief systems that we have, are things like that. Okay, so to delight in someone else's virtue. Oh, they're really well respected. Oh, they're really a friendly person and well liked. Oh, to delight in that rather than to find jealousy. So again, going back to recovery, I noticed that these people were not friendly towards happiness or compassionate towards other people's suffering or delighting in other people's virtue. And then this last one, or equanimity towards vice. Equanimity towards vice. Really like that. So not even like, disdain towards vice, but just equanimity. Just pretty flat, like no attention, but seeing it for what it is, but no adding on to it. That is a powerful verse to me. It's like that. By doing this, thoughts become purified and obstacles to your own self-knowledge will lessen. Okay? Or the obstacles can be lessened by forcibly exhaling and then retaining the prana during the pause following the exhalation. So this is an external kumbhak. So this is a practice. So we're going to practice this, and I'm going to tell you why this is got some value to it. So our breath is pretty remarkable. And this is why breath is at the heart of yoga practice in terms of mind training. Your diaphragm is both smooth and striated, which is very unusual. So what that means is this. The first part of your brain to form is your reptilian brain, your medulla oblongata. It's in the back of the brain. It's at the brain stem. It is the oldest part of your brain, and it's your flight, fright, reactive brain. When you're an embryo, that's the first thing that forms. After that, what happens is the heart forms. And after that, the intestines form. And after that, the diaphragm forms. So these are all connected to your reptilian brain. What that means is they're smooth muscles. So for example, I do not sit here and tell my heart to beat. I'm not going beat, 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 beat. It's beating because it's connected to the autonomic, unconscious, manual or automatic brain in my reptilian brain. Smooth muscles. I'm not telling my lunch to go down here, come up here, come down here, and go down here. That's all smooth muscles being run automatically by my reptilian brain, okay? Then we've got our diaphragm. Most of the time, we do not pay any attention to our breath at all, okay? We go to sleep at night, we're not thinking breathe in, breathe out, and we breathe. So it can be automatic. However, then we have our prefrontal cortex, the newest part of our brain, the largest part of our brain that sits in the front, okay? This is our conscious brain, okay? This is where I say, I'm going to raise my hand out in front of me. I'm going to point my finger up to the sky. I'm going to tap myself on the nose, okay? So I've decided what I'm going to do. The striated muscles do it. The diaphragm is both smooth and striated. So what that means is, I'm going to ask you now, count of 3, we're going to take a breath in, we're going to hold it for 3, and then we're going to exhale. So 1, 2, 3, inhale. Hold the breath. 1, 2, 3, and exhale. So what we just did there was the striated conscious muscles overrode the smooth muscles. We decided how we were going to breathe, okay? When we do that, we literally create new pathways between the front of the brain and the back of the brain, okay? And there's lots of studies on this, especially for men, that they don't get wired up for quite a while until they're like 25 or 26. However, meditation helps, okay? I saw this again in recovery all the time. People not making conscious decisions, reacting like, boom, I'll hit him in the face. Oops, where was the pause button? Okay, so the reactive brain goes, boom, I want to hit him in the face. The prefrontal cortex says, wait, maybe that's not a good idea when they're communicating. Okay, so it's really important to have this communication. The breath, practicing making our breath going from involuntary, non-deliberate, unconscious, and then we say, now I'm going to practice pranayama. Pranayama, practicing conscious breathing. And while we practice conscious breathing, we're deliberately putting our breath online, and we're training our attention, and we're staying with a conscious breath, and we're literally rewiring our brain and putting in a pause button. Pono, don't worry about it. Enjoy yourself. It goes in, and Anidra is fine, so don't fight it. I understand. I highly recommend doing a breath. Okay, so now he just gave us this example of a breath where we're supposed to exhale all our air out, okay, and then hold our air out and sit in that place. So we're going to do that in just a minute, but I want to talk about it. Because when you practice kumbhaks, breath retention, because there's also inhale as much as you can and hold your breath. Now, the difference between inhale and hold your breath is you're filled with oxygen, so we can hold our breath a whole lot longer, right? Exhale and hold your breath. When you don't have any oxygen in there, you can't hold your breath as long. But here's what happens. When you hold your breath, if we were to have a breath holding contest right now, and I said, everybody, let's hold our breath, and whoever holds their breath the longest wins, the moment we would get there, you would immediately start to hear the two parts of your brain talk. One part would be going, breathe, mayday, mayday, you're going to die, breathe, breathe, inhale. That's the reptilian brain. The front part of the brain would be going, you're okay, I think you can last a little longer. Maybe your face is puffing up. Maybe you're getting a little dizzy now. Not yet, and this is still going, mayday, mayday, warning, warning. So like it right away puts on that relationship between the two when you practice kumbhaks. This is why he's asking us to practice this. So we're going to do that for a minute and have you listen to those inner voices, all right? So close your eyes. This is an internal exercise. Relax your breath and just breathe normally. Let your breath flow gently in and out and feel what a natural breath feels like. On the next inhale, inhale nice and deep, 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 deep to the top of your breath. And then exhale all your air out. When you get to the bottom, not the bottom, but to the bottom of your breath, hold the air out and stay in the silence. Listen to the conversation that's happening. listen to the conversation. Take it as far as you feel you can. When you're ready, just relax your breath. With your eyes closed, still just notice anything that you're experiencing. Any heat, any sense of peace. Great. And open your eyes. So, what was your experience? Thank you, Sean. Sean went and got my book. What'd you notice?
Yeah, that's a practice I've done for some time with breath work and this exactly. And for me, it's very physical, more in the mind. It's in my throat. I feel a constriction and so more like a squeezing. Yeah, it's a very physical sensation. Not much of a shatter, but there's this. It's physical and it's in the throat and the chest where there's a constriction.
Okay.
That's what I feel.
Cool. And
That's a signal for me to okay, you can squeeze more, but there's also kind of a switch where I could probably pass that, surrender, and then there's another phase, but that's what I've been experiencing.
Okay. It's really interesting to play with it. So one of the things that he talks about in here is practice. And he says practice is continuous struggle over long periods of time with great faith in God. And I lived the first time for 9.5 years in a yoga ashram where we were dedicated to spiritual practice. Woke up at 4:30. We're in yoga and meditation for most of the day, service and satsang. And so, even Americans, we don't really know practice. We just don't even know practice. Practice is continuous struggle over long periods of time with great faith in God, And I thought I'd been practicing meditation before I moved into, the ashram. And then, when you sit down in meditation for 4 hours with the community and we're here for 4 hours, okay. In the first hour, I've fallen asleep. I've been angry. My back's ached. I've been everywhere. I wanted to bowl. I've come up with distractions. I've had deep experiences and profound experiences, okay, that's just the first 4 hours. When you do that 4 hours again and again and again and again and again, it just starts to relax all the edges. So when we're given a practice like this of retaining our breath, either in or out, and this one he's saying specifically out, lots happens. For me this time, I'd love to hear anybody else's experience. What was your experience of this?
I also had a constriction feeling in the back of my throat, but I felt like each time I was trying to gasp, the back of my throat was trying to gasp back and in some air, that I could feel kind of a wave coming back and forth from the back to the front of my head. And maybe it's because you just elicited that information, that I could feel each time I went, it felt this energy shift back, and then I would resist that choking sensation, and it would move forward. And it was this little ebb and flow feeling.
Wow.
A wave.
Cool.
A wave. Yeah.
Yep. Anybody else? Bree?
The moment after I knew I wasn't going to breathe back in, it kind of was, my body felt like when there's a big machine that's been running and it just you turn it off and it slowly goes.
Oh.
And then I got to the stop, my body was relaxed, and there was just this noticing of a steady pulsing throughout my whole body. It was very peaceful.
Wow, cool. Yeah, I had a similar experience. I held the breath out and I started to just get warmer and warmer and warmer, just an incredible heat kept resulting, and it really was coming from my solar plexus, yeah, and I got really I was just sweat on the back of my neck in a really cool way, and just was a wonderful permeation. Tom?
For me, I felt very calm at that bottom spot, emptied, and it was a peaceful. I was enjoying the minimalism of it, not having all that air and not moving in and out of the breath, just being emptied. It was a very relaxing spot to be in.
I love that, the minimalism and the emptiness and it's sort of like fasting, like I don't have to eat, like it's just, yeah. Yeah. That's great. So many practices of yoga are designed to create a peaceful death. They're not actually designed to do that, but that's actually one of the results. And in yoga, and in many traditions actually, it says, at that moment of death, sort of what you die with, you walk over holding, okay? And so actually, Ram Dass, it's one of the things I appreciated about Ram Dass was when he had his stroke, and after he had his stroke and recovered some, he basically said to the community, just so you know, I failed. He said, when I had my stroke, there wasn't an ounce of peace inside me. I went to being a neurotic Jewish guy going, I'm dying, I'm having a stroke, that's a thing. He was like, all my yoga was out the window, so it's back to the drawing board for me. And I believe that that was not the case when he actually passed away, that he had really handled that deep aspect of the fear of death, which is the last, when we will get into this model of the 5 causes of suffering. The last one, abhinavesha, is this fear of death, this desire to want to save ourselves, okay, in that moment when it's happening. So when we practice this aspect of non-breathing, where we bring the body down and we sit in that silence and that void for as long as we can, we begin to associate with a self that is not the body. It's actually a very fast way to find your soul and your witness consciousness inside of yourself. And I'm going to tell a little story about my father who, when he was passing away, my dad was basically 93. He had COVID that caused some complications, and since then there was water pooling up in his lungs, and he would go and then have to get it drained, and then the water would pool up in his lungs, and basically he was dying. And my mom had died just recently of COVID. He got COVID right after her, and then he had these complications. And so it was all, quite fascinating. But as his body was shutting down, and our bodies will all shut down, there comes this point for most people, if you're having a beautiful death, where the death rattle happens, where it's like the body, some organ is broken, something's slowing down, the body's breaking down, and then we get down to the breath. And when people are at the death rattle, it sounds like this. And I've had the great fortune of being at many people passing over into the veil, and I have been with people who at that moment are experiencing such fear, where it's like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, and living in a state of fear, and it's you want to calm them down to the best of their ability. I've also been with people where there's no fear at all and no relationship to that, and the breath slowly turns down like a dial just being turned down to 0, and off they go. So my dad was having this experience of his lungs filling up, going to the hospital, filling up, and I was like, Dad, at some point here, you're going to have to stop this. Like we're in the gauntlet now. This is your body it's time, and it was happening, and he was like, you're right. I'm going to stop going to have my lungs, drained, which basically meant I'm going to drown in my own lungs. Not a fun experience, right? To look forward to that, but that's the way it is sometimes. That's the way it is, quite frankly, for all of us. We get to that point of suffocation. At some point, there's the feeling of not being able to breathe. You have to let go of the prana kosha, the breath kosha. So I was with my dad fell. We got a call. This is it. He's passing away. I drove. My brother drove. My other brother got on a plane. We all converged within minutes of each other to be there with my dad for this final 2 hours of his passing. He was totally conscious, but he was struggling with his breath and with drowning in his lungs. And he was going up and down with the clicker on his bed because he'd get up and cough and get down and get up, and he was on morphine. And so my one brother is going, look at him, he can't let go of control, right to the very end, you just gotta hold it. I'm like, Jeff, he can hear you. My other brother's like reading the paper going, did you hear that the Cubs did this? I'm like, you too. So my one brother says, I got to go get lunch. I was thrilled. My other brother says, the minister's coming. And I'm going to go down to the lobby and pick him up. And I was like, great, I get to be with my dad on his own. So with my dad, I'm holding his hand, and I said, Dad, at some point, and we had talked about this before, so it wasn't like some odd conversation, but I said, at some point, you're going to have to exhale and not breathe in again. Okay? And you're going to have to stay with the self that is not this body. And with that, he exhaled, and he never breathed in again. And I sat there with him holding his hand, and I was like, you're doing it, Dad. That's it. That's it. Just stay right there. Just stay right there. Just look for Mom. Just head towards the light. Just stay right there. You got it. You're doing a great job. Just stay right there. Stay right there. And as this was happening, my one brother comes in and he's like, how's he doing? I'm like, shh, don't breathe. He's like, stay there. Then my other brother walks in with the minister, and I was like, how's he doing? So I was like, and he never breathed in again, which was just beautiful. And then the minister recited a prayer, and it was like, wow, and then we got to go through this process of, once the body shuts down, then the prana body shuts down, then the mental body is still there. You can feel it. He hears you. He's still in the room. He's still right there. Even though the heart's, not beating and the breath isn't going, he's still right there. And then it gets to a time where you feel like, oh, now we're into the soul. Now he's the wind that's moving through the room, rather than, this, and the body's cold and, he's expanded. But, so these practices might seem like, why, how weird that he's just saying, breathe out and hold your breath, like, wow, why? But there's a lot to it, okay? You're hooking up this part of your brain that literally causes the ability to be more conscious. You're overriding, that fear of death. You get to have the conversation, and you sit in the silence and associate with a higher self. So I often practice kumbhaks, breathing in the internal kumbhak when I'm driving, which is not a really great thing to do, but often I'm driving, and I'm like, oh, great time for kumbhaks. And I inhale, hold my breath as long as possible, and do my best to sit in the silence, in the void, and see what happens. So, any thoughts or questions about that? I got to see where we were in this book, and then we'll go over to this book.
I think it's interesting that guard dog aspect of sitting with the dying and protecting their peace. It feels like a pretty consistent thing to have to protect the dying from their own family and create peace. And sometimes it's, please make sure this person isn't here when I'm dying. So like that management of sort of protecting the peace that they have around their own active process of death. Seems like these practices would be so helpful just as a gift to each other to learn to make peace with that.
I agree. It's very fascinating to be at that moment, of the people that are there to allow the passing to happen and have some awareness about it, and those that are just can't handle it for whatever reason, their own fear or whatever. Yeah.
Do you think that modern day doula practitioners know about this?
I don't know this specifically, but certainly I think that they, especially here on the island, with Bodhi B, is that his name? And, they certainly have had experiences, personal experiences themselves of a self beyond the body and a self beyond the personality that can come from so many different avenues. Spiritual experiences, drug experiences, meditation, out-of-body experiences, lots of things. So, or near-death experiences. I of that list that I just gave, I could say I pretty much have had all of those. So, nature. There you go. Nature. Yeah. Offers a big one. Yeah, Jamie?
Sorry, my prenatal yoga teacher training was also a doula training, and I learned so much about, it's the flip side of it. It's the breath work and honoring the light of the life as it's coming into this world was very similar on protecting the energy as it's coming in.
It really
it's
is.
very similar, and on the flip side, there's a lot of work in this training about honoring that space and keeping the negative out as the baby's coming in for their first breath, and allowing that first breath to be like joyful and safe. So that's an interesting flip side of it.
Really is. And I've had it's a great honor to be able to be at a birth and a death. And I always say, and I've been at many of both, and it's like, for me, it's like when the veil opens. You know, time and space gets so weird at both, you know, like it just, everything gets wonky because the veil opens. And, you know, if you're aware of it, you feel it. Like time-space continuum gets weird, you know. All right, so... or another way to steady the mind is by binding it to higher, subtler sense perceptions. Okay? Another way to steady the mind is by binding it to higher, subtler sense perceptions. So we're going to have an experience here of that. Okay? Close your eyes. I'm going to be giving you some directions, an inquiries of places to place your attention gently. So gently place your attention on your breath. And let go of trying to do anything to your breath. Have it be your natural, unrestricted breath. Just notice your breath flowing in and flowing out. Great. Now place your attention on your bones, the bones in your body. See if you can feel and visualize the bones in your body. Sitting, folded, just the way they are right now. The bones of your body. Great. Now bring your attention to your ears and listen to the humming of the air conditioning. Sense and feel the vibration of the air conditioning. Great. Now, thank you. Now, see if you can feel the invisible pull of gravity, the downward pull of gravity. The feeling of weight. If you were out in the universe, you would be weightless. Here on this planet with gravity, you're being pulled towards the center. Feel gravity. Then bring your awareness to your face and feel gravity in your face, allowing all facial expression to melt in gravity. Now bring yourself back to your unrestricted natural breath without doing anything, and feel what it feels like to experience every subtle aspect of the in and out of your breath. Keep your attention on your natural breath and simultaneously experience the bones of your body. Feel the bones of your body as you breathe. And simultaneously bring your attention to your ears and hear the sound of the fan, the air conditioning, and your breath and the bones in your body. And then add in the ability to feel gravity, your weight, this downward pull. And then conclude the exercise and gently open your eyes. How did that feel? What did you notice? Got everybody relaxed. Quiet the mind.
Sense of joy in narrowing the focus.
Sense of joy in narrowing the focus. You know, just going like, oh, bring it into something subtler, the sound of, can I hear the birds? Can I place my attention on the fan? Can I place my attention on the bones of my body? I mean, there's so much all the time, just the natural breath to place our attention on. And when we deliberately take our attention around and take it apart, like I like to think of it as, you know how when you're listening to a symphony, you hear the whole orchestra and the sound is just amazing. But then, you know, if you know anything about music, you sort of separate out and you're like, oh my God, listen to what those flutes are doing. And then you can just tune into the flutes and like, oh, now they're not playing at all. And well, now they just did this part over here, but wow. And then you go, wow, those drums, boom, 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 boom. And you can just sort of separate yourself around the whole orchestra. So taking the orchestra that we're in, the cacophony of the whole thing, and deciding, wow, here's the whole cacophony, but right now I'm just going to tune into the flute. I'm just going to tune into the drum. I'm just going to tune into, you know, the bugle, and just to pull it apart. And it really, you know, wakes you up to the whole orchestra when you start to take time, and it settles everything down. Any thoughts? Yeah, Barry?
That was just a wonderful exercise for me. And when you're talking now about, you know, tuning into the flute and the drum, but the joy for me also of simultaneously tuning into the breath and the bones and the gravity on the face and all of that. So it's the one, you know, it's the particulars, but it's also everything that's can be perceived. And I really got a little taste of the amazing joy in that, the word that you used and that I felt. It's just a wonderful refuge. And, you know, I just never really looked at the bones like that, for example.
Cool.
Yes, the breath is what we do a lot, but the bones and the pull of gravity on the face. And so, you know, thank you for that, because that's the kind of exercise I feel that really served me to practice.
It's great. And sometimes, too, the cacophony of the whole orchestra can be too much. And so when it is, it's like just pull out one piece and go there, and then start adding in. Yeah. It's really great. You just reminded me of an experience. So some of you have done ayahuasca. My son and I went on an ayahuasca, went to study with some Shipibo shamans in the Amazon for 3 months. And that was 3 years ago. And these shamans had these acaros, which were, they sing and chant the song that they have heard of the plant that they have dieted with. And there were 8 shamans, and each of them was chanting at the same time. Well, one of them chanting would have been more than enough for, like this experience. But 8 of them together was just freaking like, hang on, like there wasn't enough seat belts, in the room to like tie yourself down. And the only, I was really fortunate because I used this. It would be like, okay, all this is going on, but I'm just going to tune this one out, and I'm going to tune into this, I'm like that woman, oh my God, she's so sweet and calm, and this guy's like, rather than be like, I wish he'd shut up and resist him, it's like, he's not going to, so just put all the attention on, what I do want to hear. Can I do that? And hear that. And it's a really good thing about life, because life goes on and we can't control it. But we can control our ability to where do I want to place my attention. This is, I could be like, can't believe we're in here, and that air conditioning is so distracting. It's so distracting. Hear that hum, like, well, it's just bothering me. Like I could be in that relationship with it. And that's what we do, is we do things like that where we get into relationship with something like that, and it's like, okay, well. But to allow it, it's like, well, let the air conditioning be. Let's totally be with the air conditioning. Let's hear it and just get it. And then once you do, you're like, oh, I can take my attention off of that and place it somewhere else. Anything else about that experience? Pony, can I leave him over here? She's great. Thank you.
Oh yeah, can you make what's the link with the book? Where just so I can remember where.
Yes. So he said, or another way to steady the mind is bind it to higher, subtler sense perceptions. Sight, smells, sounds, feelings. When you're sitting, close your eyes. Feel what it feels like to have the sun on your skin. Just the sun. If you just focus on that subtle aspect of the sun beating in on your skin. With your eyes closed, feel what it feels like to have the wind going over your skin. Tune into these things and just choose it, and then put your attention on it. And it calms the mind. And it doesn't matter what it is. And often I like to choose the thing that's distracting me. It's like, oh, here, I'm trying to do this, but the dog is thumping its tail. It's thumping its tail. Okay, tune into the thumping tail. Thump, 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 thump. Thump, 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 thump. It's like, okay, cool. Now, great. Deliberately place your attention on it. So it's great. It steadies the mind, and this is part of the mind practice. You're in charge of your mind, okay, rather than your mind in charge of you. Or the mind can also find peace by contemplating the luminous light that arises from the heart, which is the source of true serenity. Okay, so visualization. Visualize your heart filled with light. Visualize it. Like if you held that visualization and you meet someone and you are holding the visualization of a light in your heart enveloping another human being, that has power to it. That there's a reality to it. So this is your meditation. Place your attention on it, and it is so. It's your experience. Or another way is to make the mind's object a self-realized being who has transcended human passions and attachments. So this is the beauty of people who say, what would Jesus do? Wow, do you know Jesus? Jesus is always with me. Wow, I have an embodied, I make it up, of course, the idea of what an enlightened, all-loving being is, and he's here with me, or for some it's Maharaji, or for it's Krishna, or it's Shiva, or whoever, great. Carry a deity with you and say, what would Jesus do now? What would an avatar do now? What would Krishna do in this situation now? That's a beautiful, beautiful meditation. So this is in the first chapter. He gives these great, exercises. Or serenity can come by letting the mind be grounded in knowledge that it has arisen from dreams or from the dreamless state of deep sleep. So, I mean, this is also, studying your dreams in your unconscious realm can really give quite, this is very Jungian, can give you quite a lot of insight into, what's going on in your outer world. I want to share a story about that. So at one point in my life, I was busy trying to decide again what I was going to do when I grow up. I'm still working on that. And I had decided for this period of my time that I was going to become a Jungian analyst. I was loved Carl Jung, was going to be an analyst, had some friends who were analysts, admired all they had been through to become an analyst. Well, in order to become an analyst, the first thing you have to do is go through analysis, which is a lengthy, costly process of, if things go well, 10 years. Okay, and then you enter into, what it takes to, work with, to go to school to become actually an analyst. So it's a good, 20-year dedication. So I started. And I was 3 years into analysis, and I was going to speed it up. So I was going to go 3 days a week, and, try and be done faster than anybody, because that's what I like to do, right? So it was all about my dreams. So first, it was like recording dreams, coming and talking about my dreams. And it really pissed me off because I'd done a lot of therapy, and I'd be like, I can't believe we're talking about this when I'm having trouble with my girlfriend at home. Like we're, we have real problems, and we're talking about like a stupid dream. Like that makes no sense. So at this point, I was having this thing where I realized I was having dreams 3 days a week of my brother chasing me, like wanting to shoot me up with some drug. And I was always the victim, and he was always chasing me, and I was always running, and it was always this. And I said to my analyst, I gotta call my brother and tell him he's a fucking asshole. And even to this day, he's in my dreams. I go to sleep and he's still tormenting me. And he's like, this is not about your brother. Do not call your brother. This is the brother inside of you. So we gotta get this straight. So through analysis, what happened was it was like, well, how come you're always running? Why don't you run after him? How come you're always the victim? Why don't you turn around and tell him to stop? And it's like, But that was happening in the conscious thing, but then it started to happen in my dreams. And I started to have dreams where my brother would be chasing me, and I'd turn around and say, fuck you. And, and that would happen in the dreams, and suddenly the dreams started to change. Well, then I noticed in my life, I was having trouble with my girlfriend, and I was always feeling victimized and not really standing up for myself. And suddenly I started to speak up for myself in different ways, and it was like, wow, this is sort of interesting, the way what's going on in that, weird, nighttime dream state is actually affecting my, daytime, a reflection of what's going on daytime-wise. So, pretty cool. Yes. I'm trying to find, I've got 2 books going on here, and I want to get to one book. Here we go, 138. There we go. Here's the book I want to be in. All right, thank you, Melanie. You can have your book back. Thank you. Or serenity can come by letting the mind be grounded in knowledge that has arisen from dreams or from the dreamless state of deep sleep. Or another way is persistent meditation in harmony with your religious heritage. Okay, so do the rosary, pray to Jesus, do whatever, or mastery of tranquility extends from the most minute particle to the largest, the form of the entire cosmos. So it's saying, when you get tranquility, it's not just a small thing. It's going from the smallest to the largest. True tranquility extends everywhere, like in all realms. That's how you recognize what tranquility is. 1, whose vacillations are steadily diminishing. Okay, now I know that the word that they use here for vacillations is actually, it's a Sanskrit word called the vrittis. And the vrittis are the vacillating waves of perception of our mind, the constant roller coaster of the mind. And it says, whose vacillations are steadily diminishing experiences the mind as transparent, just as a high-quality gemstone reveals the form of objects that are placed near it. So it's like when something is highly polished, it reflects everything that's around it. So when we stop all of our projections and judgments onto others and we become non-judgmental, what happens is we become more mirror-like, and people tend to see themselves in us as opposed to, me telling you who you are. It's me open and who are you, which is a whole different state, and you finding yourself in the inquiry. So this aspect of removing those vacillations, of getting to a place where the mind is really clear and pure, of needing to, it's quiet, a quiet mind, a non-judgmental mind. So this first chapter, just so you know, one of the things that he's doing is he's basically getting us geared up for chapter 2. These are just like, this is where you're going to go, people, little sort of like holding out the carrot. This is what's possible, And he gives lots of these fun exercises. These people attain a state of absorption wherein the knower, the experience of knowing, and the object of knowledge fuse into one indistinguishable self. All right, I'm going to leave that be, but I'm not. Okay, so let's choose an object. I'm choosing this object. Okay, so I'm going to break these down. He says, so one is the absorption wherein the knower, the experience of knowing, and the object of knowledge fuse into oneself. So here I am, I'm the knower. What is this? Okay, it's a marker, right? So now we're the knower. We are labeling it. We're telling it what it is. Give me more descriptions about this. Someone describe it. Green, thick, big green marker, permanent, smelly. Plastic and metal. Great. So now we're the knower. We've told it what it is. Okay? Great. That's what we know about it. The experience of knowing, it's very, very different. Okay? So this experience of knowing is really forget everything that we just know about it. Okay? Let's say Archie. Let's say you're from another planet. Let's say you're Leela. You have no labels for this, okay? All right? You have no labels for what this is. Okay, so now that you don't know what it is and you're from another planet and I hold this thing up, experience it. Experience it. Experience it. Experience it. What kind of experience is it having? Can you get some idea? Do you have some sort of feel for what this is? Do you have any kind of feel for what it is? Yeah. Okay? Okay, without the labels. Just like this is an experience. It's having an experience. Can you experience that? There's no words. Like if I tried to describe it, it wouldn't be it, right? It's having that experience. Could you feel what that experience is like? Right? You can't describe it. And this is again one of my favorite things, which is the moment you start talking about Zen, you're far from it. Which is really yoga. I mean, the experience of union cannot be talked about. If we're doing that, we're going green, metal, this, that, which is, we're telling it what it is, which is very different than, what are you? What does it feel like? Can I experience this energy field? Everything is energy. There's energy everywhere, and this is a piece of energy that's having an energy experience. And Deepak Chopra says, the primordial ooze, Patanjali will say it differently, but basically we're all knowing. We're all part of this matrix, and we know, not from here, we have a knowing about what this experience is, what this weight feels like, what this energy feels like. That comes in the same way that Leela does, in the same way that an alien would, in the same way that Archie would. So, okay, so now we got the knower, the experience of knowing, and then the object of knowledge. So now, this object of knowledge is having an experience. It's experiencing you. It's actually feeling the wind go over it. It actually feels the light on it. It actually is hearing the vibration of the fan. It's feeling it. It's having an experience. So there's it, there's the experience of it, and there's our knowledge of it. And when they all fuse into one, we start to gain a much greater knowledge. Okay? Now this is what happens when we're tripping. People end up having these, they slip and slide into having experiences with things beyond our labels, beyond of telling things what they are. And we think, oh my God, I'm psychic. I tapped into some new realms. I got information about this person or this thing or this self or this object that I couldn't have gotten otherwise. Well, it's actually, Patanjali says it's our natural birthright. We have that ability. So this is the way to wake that up, is to quiet the mind to be able to tap into the energy experiences of things. He gives us a gradient approach after this, and it's in chapter 3 about how to practice this. And he says start out with inanimate objects and then move on to animals and save people for last, because obviously, like if I try and say feel what it feels like to be, having that experience over there. At first I go, Sean, like to let me tell it what it is. Sean, this is what I know about him. I know his girlfriend. I know where he lives. I know, like I can do all of that. Those are my projections. But then it's like, let go of all of that. Feel what it feels like to be that. He's saying it's much harder to do. It's easier to do with a pen than it is with a person. Okay, because we have many more projections. So he says start first with inanimate objects and you'll have more awareness when you're doing it with another person. Okay, which is really cool. Okay, so those are just the beginning of this. And now here we get to the real heart of why we're doing all of this. Chapter 1, number 43. When the storehouse of memories and impressions is completely purified. Okay? So this storehouse of memories and impressions is right back here. It's a vessel and a storehouse of memories and impressions. These are called samskaras. Okay? Our samskaras are our karma. Anytime we were busy going along in the present moment, and anytime we went, ouch, that's too much. Ouch, that hurt. Wait, that's too big. Wait, I can't handle this. We send it back into the storehouse of impressions and we say, that's going to wait till later. Okay? That hurt, would never want to be depressed, would never want to be angry again, would never want to feel hurt again. And then what we do is it's sitting back there in our vessel, our storehouse, and we say, got to keep that locked up. So I take some of my attention to keep it locked up. And then now my energy and prana goes out here to say, how can I control out here so I don't experience back there? Okay? And now we're out of the present moment. Because these got there because we were wide open. We get born into the wide open and then, ouch, it hurts. Okay? And then we go, ooh, don't like that. I only want the good side back there. And then we start to load up this reservoir of subliminal impressions. And then it starts to control us because we spend a lot of time and energy, and our energy is wrapped up. Okay? And we're not free because we're so busy trying to not feel what's back there that what at some point was too much to feel. So when the storehouse of memories and impressions is completely purified, this is our samskaras. Samskaras together make up our karma. Okay? When you purify that, perception is empty of these vacillations. I stop projecting. Okay? Because some guy who looked like Sean hurt me in the past, okay, that's back here. I see Sean. I'm not actually seeing Sean. I'm seeing the guy in the past that I don't want to see again. And now, oh my God. And, Sean's not even in it, but I'm certain it's Sean. I'm certain. I've got, watch the way he moves. It's just, I can see he's dangerous. Like it's there. We got evidence, and that's what our whole world is. It's saying when you can go back here and experience the guy who was dangerous and re-experience it and gain back the self and say, I'm okay, then suddenly I'm out here and like, wow, he doesn't look so bad. Maybe now I can start to get to know who he is regardless of my projection, you know? So pretty cool stuff. So when you empty these vacillations, then only the object's true essence shines forth in thought-free perception. So then you can start to see things for what they are, okay? And we don't see anything for what it is, you know? I mean, so in this, I'm going to skip ahead in a bit. When we start to get into the practice of samyama, which Patanjali lays out about how to train the mind, and he's saying, go around and start to feel into the experience of energy forms all around you, non-inanimate energy forms all around you. And when you do that, you start to clear this reservoir of subliminal impressions. So I used to lead workshops at my house, and I would send people out and be like, okay, you're going out to do samyama on inanimate objects. Go out, choose objects, stay with it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, then move on to another object. Come back and tell me what you experienced. Come back in a half hour. Out they would go. Someone would come back and say, I'd say, tell me about your samyama experiences. Well, I experienced a flower. It was amazing. I experienced a bumblebee. It was amazing. It was so beautiful. I experienced the sun on a leaf. It was amazing. It was so beautiful. And I'm like, wow, so you chose all beautiful things. Beautiful things, okay? Now, would you go out and do dog poop and a piece of garbage and cigarette butt and some bubble gum on the sidewalk? You know, it's like, wow, they didn't even know it. They went out to do samyama, but they just chose beautiful things, okay? Well, it's like interesting, right? How we've already got this overlay, and it was, of course, but guess what? The bubble gum is beautiful, and the cigarette butt is beautiful, and the dog poop is beautiful, you know? But it's interesting that people wouldn't even know that they were doing that. Okay? And you have to keep going so that you take off all of your ideas about what it's supposed to be like to experience something just as it is in the experience that it's having. So I also like this story because it was very funny. So I was doing these samyama exercises, and my neighbor across the street called the police. And the police came to my door and said, you know, your neighbor's called the police. What's going on here? And I said, what's going on? And he said, she called because people were staring at her garbage for a half hour. There was a man in her garbage can staring at the garbage can for a half hour. And she called because people were walking slowly on the street. Very dangerous, right? So isn't that funny? The police were called because people were walking slowly and doing samyama meditation on like in her, you know, there was garbage can was right on the street and he was standing at the garbage can. So it was like, it's okay, we're doing a meditation experiment. So it's like, where has the world come to, right? All right, so that's what we're trying to get to, is to see everything just as it is. Just as it is. Like ultimately, and this is again something that psychedelics have the possibility of doing, is popping us out of our minds so we're in states of awe. Awe, 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 awe. The truth is, that's how we should be all the time. We should be going like, whoa, whoa, like toes and feet and knees and people and eyes and whoa, you know, because it's awesome. You know, the fact that we've like dumbed ourselves down and we go, oh, person, thing, yeah, thing, yeah, been here, yeah, tree. See, I experienced one a long time ago. Now I just tell trees what they are. I don't extend myself towards them. No, tree, 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 weather bad, Hawaii, another rainbow. Well, you know, like, okay, you know, like, so, wow, let go of all the labels and just extend in the same way like when we did this. It's like an alien. You have to ask it, what is it? What are you experiencing? And that's why we love babies. You know, you look in a baby's eye and a baby is looking at you like, what are you? You know, they just like wide open. And if you give this to a baby, they're like, what is it? You know, they're totally in it, you know, like they want it, they're in the question. And then they start to get two. man, woman, good, bad, hot, cold, bird, dog, this. And then we start telling things what they are rather than being in relationship to them. So this is getting us back to our states of awe. Specifically, by this process of absorption with reflection, and absorption beyond reflection is the perception of subtle objects explained. So that's just what we were doing. You go in, you have an insight, you come out, you integrate the insight, you go in, you have an experience, you come out, you have an insight, you go in and you see all the beautiful things, you come out and go, oh my God, I just saw all the beautiful things, only the beautiful things. Let me go back and see some non-beautiful things, really interesting, I want to tell you another samyama experience that I used to take them in this workshop to. There was a Catholic church nearby the house. And in this Catholic church, there was a crucifix of Jesus hanging on the cross, made out of wood that was like 2 stories high. And we would go to this church and sit down, and I would ask people to do samyama on this. Without giving a label to it. It's like, do samyama, and then we'd talk about it. Someone would, oh my God, I just feel the presence of the Lord dying on the cross for our sins, and it's so beautiful, and my heart opens, and somebody else was going, oh my God, I'm Jewish, and this is just the grossest thing I can possibly understand. This guy has caused so much trouble for my people, and he was a good Jewish guy, but and somebody else says, oh my God, did you see the carving? It's the most incredible piece of art, the wood and the grain, and like how did he make the cloth look like that? And his hair, it's like all wood, but look at what he did with the knots, and they're seeing a piece of art. It's like, wow, what's the truth? What is the thing? It's like, okay, well, can we see the thing? Can we allow it to be what it is? And we give the thing all the meaning that it has for us. So how do we go, empty our storehouse of subliminal impressions to be present with what it truly is? It takes practice. And when you can do it, like I said, with inanimate things, then it gets easier with the harder things, which are fellow human beings, which also, and then even harder, our own selves. All right, we're getting close. What time is it?
5:20.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. When the mind becomes free from these obstructions and vacillations cease, the mind becomes absorbed into spirit without producing any future seeds. Thus, a new mind is born of this wisdom that is free from ignorance. Okay, so when we empty this and we stop projecting, we actually create a brand new mind, a different mind. Okay, and the storehouse of these projections gets emptied, and we start to become free. And we also then free our future up. So you've all experienced when you get a healing and it's like, wow, that thing is gone. And then you also know, wow, my future is now freed up. That thing that I was doing, wow, I now see that I'm not going to be doing that in the future. I have a new insight. So that's where we're going. We're still in the first chapter, and he's still giving us good ideas, but it gets juicier. So actually, literally, that was the end of the first chapter. So any thoughts or questions on Patanjali's sutras?
I have a thought. It's interesting. You stated that a lot of people tend to want to put what's dark and what's uncomfortable behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And in my life, I experienced the opposite. Up until just recently, it's like instead of seeing beautiful things, like not even having a concept of what's beautiful, is how you see is what is not beautiful. You're just like totally locked in because that's just what has been.
Mm-hmm.
What you were forced to look at just wasn't, and then you just see that everywhere. And then so it's just, I would say like with the help of psychedelics, also just shifting my own awareness, just like even the concept of what it feels like for something to be beautiful. Just that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess can you do the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll give you another example, I think that sort of says what you're saying. So I was leading a yoga teacher training, and which I'd led many, and this woman came to our yoga teacher training, and behind the scenes, me and my fellow instructors were like, why did this woman come here? I mean, like, she was such an anomaly. She was the tightest. She was tiny and tight and so in her head. And I just, like, it was not like anybody we've ever attracted. And, you know, I was doing my best to love her, but and in every way, but there was no feeling there. Like, there was no connection, and she was just like, and we're all good with our tricks. We were all trying everything, you know, of course, but she kept coming, and she was studious and tight and asking tons of questions, and we're like, wow, you know, like, and we're doing our best to see if we could make some connect to this woman. Just wasn't happening. So then we led a holotropic breath session. So in this, it's a Kriya breath, where it's a deep, deep breathing experience, which then is basically can be for many people like a psychedelic experience. It throws you beyond the mind into a state where stored image, memory, you know, etc. can come to you. So I'm telling you, we did the breath for 45 minutes. Now, many people breathe 45 minutes and not much happens. We're 3 minutes into this breath, okay? And this woman goes for it. 3 minutes into it, and she starts to laugh, like a laughter that was the best. Like, it should have been like videoed for like a laughter box. I mean, she starts to laugh, and she laughed for 45 minutes, like an unbelievable, uncontrollable laugh for 45 minutes. Okay. And, you know, other people are dying and screaming and crying, and, you know, she laughed for 45 minutes. And then at the end, we're, you know, asking people about their experience, and she said, I have never experienced joy in my life. I didn't believe or know it existed. There was no one in my family that's experienced it. There was no one, this was not on my radar. And somehow she got popped right over into, you know, the laughter box, you know. So, you know, it's an example, you know, of like, wow, you know. And so when we have those shifts in perception, and again, psychedelics can cause shifts in perception like that are often fast and spontaneous, where we suddenly have a new reality. So.
Was she joyful the rest of the training? Did it shift her?
It shifted her some.
Yeah.
It shifted her some, but the patterns it was a beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it was a beginning. So it was definitely a beginning. I mean, I have no idea where she's at now, but, you know, interesting. It was definitely powerful.
She
Yep.
knew it was right for her to be there. She came.
Yeah, and let's just say if she never got anything else, right? If that was all she got, yeah, she got a good laugh out of it. It was also a 9-month training, so, you know, like, better have been good.
She followed some kind of calling, and she was there.
Yep, and she experienced joy
And there it was.
for the first time. And her body exuded prior to that, like, it was like, wow, this is stone. There's no joy here. Like, wow, we can't, like, wow. So somehow the environment was ready. So, all right, gang. So come next, October, November, beginning first Wednesday of November. And if not, it's once a month. Yeah, and they're always posted on YouTube. So if you type in Hanuman Maui, Devarshi Stephen Hartman, you'll get all the other Dharma talks. So yeah, you can get the 2 others on the sutras prior to this if you're interested. Yep, thank you. Good to be with you. Jai Bhagwan. What do you think, Arch? What do you think? Do you have anything to say? He says, Daddy, do you know it's dinner time?